Welcome back to Shady Tales. Tonight, we dive into the heart of North American cryptids. From the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest to the remote woods on the edge of Washington and Oregon, we'll share chilling encounters with creatures like Bigfoot, the Wendigo, and the Dogman. These are more than just campfire stories. They are vivid memories that have left a lasting impact. So, grab your blankets, turn down the lights, and prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown. Remember, sometimes the things that go bump in the night are very real. Let's begin our descent into the mysteries of North America's most feared cryptids. Let's get started.
I've always loved the forest. It's been my sanctuary since I was a kid, tagging along with my late father on camping and fishing trips. The forests of the Pacific Northwest hold a special place in my heart. The towering trees, the scent of pine in the air, and the serene beauty of nature all around. It's where I find peace, especially with my trusty dog Millie by my side. A few weekends ago, I decided to take a solo trip, something I've done countless times. After setting up my campsite about a mile away from the main camp, I decided to wander over and enjoy some social time with fellow campers. Millie and I walked over, and it was a great evening, filled with a few drinks, shared stories, and plenty of laughter. As the night grew late, it was time to head back to our campsite. I called Millie, and together we embarked on the trek back under the beautiful, moon-soaked sky. The forest at night has its own kind of magic, with the sounds of nature creating a symphony around us. About 15 minutes into our walk, something changed. An awful smell hit me, like a mix of human excrement, sweat, and vomit. It was so strong that I practically gagged. That's when I noticed the eerie silence. The crickets, the bugs, the owls, everything had gone silent. My gut tightened with a sense of dread. Then I heard it, from about 20 feet away, across the trail, into the dense wood. The sound of brush moving, twigs snapping, and the forest floor shifting. I wasn't alone. My heart pounded as I strained to see through the darkness. Then I saw them. Eyes, glowing in the moonlight, locked onto mine. They belonged to a giant being standing completely still. The primal fear that gripped me in that moment was like nothing I've ever felt before. Millie growled low, her hackles raised, but even she seemed unsure of what to do. A deep, guttural growl emanated from the creature, sending chills down my spine. My rational mind tried to make sense of it, but there was no mistaking it. I was face to face with Bigfoot. I don't remember much after that. The next thing I knew, I was in my car, speeding down the highway, my heart still pounding, my hands shaking. I haven't gone solo camping since. That encounter shook me to my core, and it's taken a lifetime of enjoyment and turned it into a source of fear. I always considered myself a rational, facts-based person. But that night, the forest showed me a different reality, one that still haunts me every time I close my eyes. The forest can be a place of beauty and wonder, but it can also hide secrets that defy explanation. If you ever find yourself hiking alone, remember, sometimes it's not just your imagination. Stay safe out there.
Hey everyone, if you're not familiar with geocaching, it's like a real-life treasure hunt where you use GPS coordinates to find hidden items or caches in secret locations. It's usually a lot of fun and a great way to explore new places. this time, things took a terrifying turn. It all started on a Friday night. My friends and I decided to do some geocaching in a dark forest on the edge of Washington State and Oregon. The forest itself was creepy, but we were up for the adventure. My friend Kaylee and I split off from Dan and Winston as we searched an abandoned building for the geocache. The building was old, with a creaky door that seemed to groan in protest as we pushed it open. Inside, everything was dark and wet, the smell of mold hanging heavy in the air. Kaylee wrinkled her nose and asked, would someone really put a cache in such a dangerous, disgusting building? I shrugged, trying to keep the mood light. There's only one way to find out, Kaylee. We have to find this thing before Win and Dan. We looked at the hints again, which mentioned a medical-like room. Determined, we continued to traverse the dark, echoey halls, filled with abandoned equipment and graffiti. The atmosphere was unsettling, to say the least. First aid, Kaylee read from a faded sign. We rammed the rusted door together, and it finally gave way. The musty smell hit our noses, making us both gag. Suddenly, Kaylee shrieked and pointed to a dark corner of the room. I just saw a white leg crawl into the darkness over there, Ammi. I let out a slight giggle, thinking she was messing with me as she usually did. But the look on her face told me otherwise. She was genuinely terrified. I shone our high-powered flashlight into the corner, but saw nothing. There was an open AC vent, but no sign of anything unusual. After comforting Kaylee and convincing her that we were in the final stretch of finding the cache, we entered the room to search. Despite the mess, it didn't take long to find it with the clues. We texted Winston and Dan to let them know where to find us. Curiosity got the best of us, and we opened the cache before they arrived. Inside was a piece of paper attached to the log, written in faded ink. It read, "It's not safe in here. I was not alone when I found this cache." A chill ran down my spine just as we heard a shriek from the AC vent in the corner. I shone the flashlight at the vent, and to this day, I'll never forget what we saw. A scrawny, human-like creature was on all fours in the vent, just watching us. Kaylee screamed an ear-piercing scream as we both bolted for the door. As we reached the stairs, we saw Winston and Dan running up. We screamed at them to run, grabbing Dan's shirt out of pure fear. We sprinted to the car, breathless and terrified, begging Dan to drive. He insisted on knowing what had happened and where the cache was. Before we could explain, the creature's terrifying screech echoed again. Without another word, Dan floored the car. Kaylee didn't speak to me for weeks after that. We started researching and believed that creature was the Rake, a figure from urban legends. Whatever it was, I'll never drive down the road to those buildings again for the rest of my life.
Growing up poor with a single mother in the 90s, life was tough. My older sister worked hard to help make ends meet, and I did odd jobs around the area to contribute. One summer, an elderly man named Mr. Richardson offered me a good amount of money to fish some panfish from the Pecos River for him, as it was his favorite dish. That summer, I became an avid fisherman at the banks of the Pecos River, almost every day of my school vacation. Fishing for Mr. Richardson made things easier for my mom, and she started to trust me more, letting me go out on my own, initially I fished in the mornings until the afternoon, but the intense New Mexico heat drove me to fish later in the afternoon and into the night. Night fishing was even more successful, and for a while everything went smoothly. Then, 2 weeks into my night fishing routine, I had the most terrifying encounter of my life. It was a night like any other, and I was one cast away from heading home when I heard a soft groaning sound. It was similar to the sound of a bear, and panic set in as I realized I had nothing to protect myself with. The night suddenly grew silent, and I sat there on my cooler, frozen with my fishing pole in hand. The moonlight glinted off the embankment on the other side of the river, providing a faint illumination. I heard the tumbling of rocks and slowly looked up to the cliff on the opposite side. That's when I saw it, a creature, emaciated with long arms and legs, crawling down the cliffside with unnatural movements. The sight of it froze me in fear. The creature reached the riverbank and began to drink from the pecos, seemingly unaware of my presence. It used its long, scraggly arms to scoop water to its mouth. Just then, at the worst possible moment, I hooked a fish, and the splash echoed through the still night. The creature slowly turned its head towards me, and its glowing eyes locked onto mine. It made a hissing sound, and I could see its eyes blinking in a disturbing, inhuman way. The creature's appearance was horrifying. Its skin stretched tight over its bones, giving it a skeletal look, and its movements were jerky and unnatural. The creature began to crawl toward the water, disappearing under it as it moved in my direction. In a burst of sheer terror, I snapped out of my trance, dropped my fishing pole, and sprinted up the path towards my bike. I thought I heard sounds behind me, but it could have been my imagination fueled by fear. I pedaled home as fast as I could, my heart pounding in my chest. After that night, I never fished alone again. I brought friends with me and chose different spots to fish. I'm not sure what that creature was, but I'm thankful I never got close enough to find out. Whether it was a Wendigo, a Skinwalker, or something else entirely, that encounter left a mark on me that I'll never forget.
When I was 12, I went on a Girl Scout camping trip in Michigan. While most of the details about the trip have become blurry over time, the vivid image of the monster I saw that night remains clear in my head, like a photograph. The first night was uneventful. We did normal camp activities, told scary stories while cooking s'mores on the campfire. I have to admit, one of the head scout leaders, Beth, really creeped us out with her story about skinwalkers and their gruesome legend. We laughed it off, but a lingering sense of unease settled over us. The next day, after lunch, we went hiking to see some of the beautiful sights in the area. The path was serene, with tall trees swaying gently in the breeze, and the sound of birds and rustling leaves accompanying us. The sunlight filtered through the canopy, creating a dance of light and shadow on the forest floor. As we walked, one of the leaders pointed out a damaged tree with its bark removed and giant claw markings etched into it. She joked, "We better watch out for bears or whatever monster was responsible for that." We laughed nervously, trying to shake off the chill that ran down our spines. A few hours passed, and we lost track of time while admiring the scenic beauty. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the moon slowly took over the night sky, we decided to head back to our campsite. Beth had a bright flashlight, which put most of us at ease. The night was still, with brisk air, and the nightly ambience of crickets and rustling leaves adding to the atmosphere. As we approached the fork in the trail, something was blocking our path in the distance. It was the body of a half-eaten deer. The sight of it made our scout group anxious and upset. Dana, another scout leader, asked Beth, "What should we do?" Before Beth could respond, the loudest, most shrilling howl tore through the forest. It was so loud that we knew the creature responsible was extremely close. Beth shined her flashlight past the deer, illuminating the tree marked by monstrous claws. And that's when we saw it. A creature with the head of a wolf, but the body was all wrong. It had long, muscular arms and legs, covered in patches of mangy fur. It stood on two legs, peering around the tree, its glowing eyes locking onto ours. Though we only saw its head and part of its upper body, I knew instantly this was no ordinary wolf. This was the Dogman, a monster out of legend, and we were trapped with nowhere to go. Its eyes were a vivid yellow, almost luminescent in the dark. The way it moved was both animalistic and disturbingly human. It crouched, its long arms reaching the ground, and its snout sniffing the air, catching our scent. Saliva dripped from its sharp, jagged teeth, and a low growl rumbled from its throat, sending shivers down my spine. In a quick move, Beth pulled out her flare gun and shot a bright red flare in the direction of the beast. The flare hissed through the air, illuminating the entire area in an eerie red glow. The Dogman growled menacingly, the red light reflecting off its fur and eyes, making it look even more demonic. It turned, using its powerful legs to leap up, plant its feet on the tree, and launch itself into the darkness with a lion-like roar. Screaming, we all ran back to our camp. We didn't pack anything. We just fled immediately. None of us spoke about it on the bus ride home, probably to avoid sounding insane. Beth told the parents we had encountered a dangerous wild animal that looked like a wolf, and to protect the children, we had to leave immediately. Many years later, my mother told me that when the parents went to collect our belongings, they found everything ravaged. Our tents were ripped apart, our supplies destroyed. The deer's body we had seen was torn to pieces and scattered throughout the campsite. That was the last time I was allowed to attend camping events with the Scouts. The memory of that night still haunts me, a reminder that sometimes the stories we tell around the campfire might just have a grain of truth to them.
Thank you for joining us on this journey into the unknown. We've heard tales of terror and mystery, from encounters with Bigfoot and the Wendigo to the terrifying Dogman. These stories remind us that the world is full of unexplained phenomena and cryptids that continue to haunt our imaginations. If you enjoyed these stories, please like, share, and subscribe to Shady Tales for more spine-chilling content. Your support helps us keep the lights on and the stories coming. Credits for the background music will be in the description below. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and remember, sometimes the things that go bump in the night are very real. Good night, and see you in the next video.